Welcome to ElevatePod, where we elevate your mindset, inspire your spirit, and ignite your leadership journey. This podcast is brought to you by Elevate Leadership Services. My name is Pearl.
And I'm Chibochungu.
The Elevate Pod is dedicated to inspiring and empowering listeners with a focus on minorities and immigrants. We offer valuable tools, resources, and pathways to foster personal and professional growth.
Today we are thrilled, honored to interview Dr. Jennifer Gray Rieber. Did I pronounce your last name well?
Rieber.
Rieber.
That's why I just went by Jennifer Gray at work.
Okay. Dr. Jennifer Gray Rieber, who will share most of our experiences, which is abundant, our journey, and our insights on support systems, impact, and significance. Most people celebrate success as a solo achievement. We applaud the resilience, independence, and grit. Yet behind every person who has endured, healed, or risen, there is often an unseen web of support. Sometimes it's loud and visible. Other times it's quiet. A text message at the right time, a prayer whispered in your absence, or someone who simply stayed when things became uncomfortable. Today's conversation invites us to examine the invisible strength that makes visible impact, our support systems. And that's what Dr. Jennifer Gray Rieber is going to be talking about. But before I ask her to say something, I would like to give you her bio. Dr. Rieber did her undergraduate education at McMaster's University in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, in biology, majoring in biology from 1976 to 1978. She attended the University of California, Davis as a transfer student in biochemistry with a Bachelor of Science degree. Her medical school, George Washington University School of Medicine, she got an MD in 1985. She started working at the National Children's Hospital, Washington, D.C. She did her residency in pediatric residency from 85 to 88. And she was board certified as a pediatrician in 1988. What a wonderful journey. Her employment history is that she worked in the Morse Chemical Laboratories in Sacramento as a lab technician. She has worked as a banker in the Bank of America, and she started working as a pediatrician in Kaiser Permanente Medical Group from July 1988 to 2019. Wow, what a long career in one place. Many of us move from one place to the other. She was a staff pediatrician. She took roles as site chief for Stockton Pediatrics from 2009 to 2019. She was a pediatric Stockton lead for quality for Central Valley area. She was a pediatric lead for scripts and protocols in Central Valley area. But above all, she's a daughter and she's a mother. So what else can you add to this bio of yours?
Well, you pretty much covered it.
Okay.
But it took, the journey can be summed up in one page, but it took a lifetime to do all of that. So or hopefully still have more lifetime to go. But yeah, it was a long journey. But when you get on the road to something like this, you take one step at a time. I can remember friends saying, "Oh my goodness, how can you do that? It's going to be 12 years of school before you make a living." It's like right now, it's just 1 year at a time. Finish my bachelor's, work until you get into medical school. It's 4 years of medical school. You take 1 year at a time. You don't look at how long it's going to be, and you just keep walking the steps. And you, at the end of that, you find you're there.
Correct.
So I don't discourage people who have a long journey. Just say, start, keep your feet on the road, and you'll get there.
Wonderful.
So
Awesome. I can't wait to hear more.
And
Getting
the more
excited
children.
already.
Yeah, and children, because she has more children as a pediatrician, I think. Yeah.
Oh, 3 children. It was kind of funny when I first started as a pediatrician. I didn't have kids. I wasn't married. So I started, I got married 3 years after I had started working in Stockton. And they would ask me, "How many kids do you have?" And I said, "No kids." It's like, I could see in the back of their head going, "Why should we
What are
take
you
your
doing
advice?"
here?
It's like, I've read a lot about kids.
Yeah.
But as I became a mother, my advice changed. It definitely changed, because now I know how hard the job of a mother is, and there's no other job like it. The father is necessary and it's very good to have, but the mothering job is very intense.
It's hard.
And there's times when you just want to drop everything and leave for a minute.
Yes.
And that's when you need to have your partner.
Yes.
But yeah, definitely changed my advice for moms, especially about crying babies.
Oh,
All right.
right out.
Yeah.
Okay, so well, there's an old saying, it takes a village.
It does.
Yes.
In today's fast-paced digital world, many of us are more connected, but yet more isolated than ever before. Support systems are no longer guaranteed. They must be built, they must be nurtured and protected. This conversation today invites reflection on who is in your village, who should be, and how long or how being supported also calls us to become a support to others. So let's dive in and hear from our guests. My very first question to you is what does a support system mean to you personally?
So the way I look at my support system, it's the people who give you emotional support and the people who give you support in what you do. So it could be work support. So the emotional support really comes from my family and my friends. Sometimes you need just a sounding board or someone to talk things through. Your family may not be able to help you at your work. They can't. They're separate from that. But what they can do is just listen to you go through your logic in your head out loud and be the sounding board, and then you simplify what you're thinking, you prioritize it, and then you go, "Oh yeah, I know what to do." So they are support to listen, not always to suggest, but sometimes their suggestions are good. Your coworkers are people who know you at work and can give you insights into something that you might be having trouble with. I don't vent my frustrations with coworkers, because that should be separate. You should not bring your frustrations, your anger, those kind of things to the workplace. But you can do that at home. And get rid of that and then move on. Supervisors are also great supports to support you in your learning, in So for my job, I got to be into leadership. And to do leadership, they sent me to leadership training. And I would go with other people at my level who are also learning. And we would learn techniques to use with the people that we were leading, to use how to recognize different characters in our employees, in our department. How do I say this? That every person has a different personality, and different personality types respond better to different types of direction. So you can direct people, or you can ask their input and guide them to where you want them to go, as opposed to just order it. So it's learning the different personalities of the people you work with so that you can direct. And one of the big examples I remember was, some people like to talk first. They're friendly. They want to have a personal relationship with you. So we would talk. Hi, how's your day? Are you doing well today? You are supporting them as well. And you're showing that you care about them as a person. And then you get to what you need them to do. There are other people who just tell me what to do, give me a list, and I'll go do it. So some of those little tips we had to learn, and it's good to be given the opportunity to learn that in a formal way.
Yeah, I like how you separate that. Support systems are, you have the home support system, your family, your work, and you can have your church. You can have all these different, and all of them serve different roles in our lives. Yeah. But in your life, you've served, or you've encountered challenges, like every one of us. And during that season of the challenge that you faced, who were the key people that allowed you to face that challenge and walked past it with good success?
So I think, to give you a little bit of background, of my background, to what I learned in my family is how I learned to move through my life. So my family, my parents were both Jamaican, but my father was actually born in Cuba. His family had immigrated to Cuba, which was a much bigger island than Jamaica, for work. And so he and his four brothers and sisters were born in Cuba. His father passed away from an accident when he was 5. So the oldest, I think, was 12, and then there was 2 younger than him. So, they've been there for 12 or 15 years. They moved to Jamaica to live with his mother's family. So he was brought up without a dad, but with his grandfather, who was pretty strict. And so support was her family. And then my mother was born also in Jamaica, in the Blue Mountain area. And when she was about 5 or 6, her mother got very sick, and she was sent to live with an aunt in the city. It's not a big city. They're all small cities. But she went and lived outside of the home. And once her mom got better, she stayed. She'd come home on summer vacations, but she would be there to go to school, to live with the aunt and the cousin. So she grew up outside her family, but supported by relatives. And then when she was 20, she decided she wanted to emigrate to Canada. So she, on her own, at 20 years old, left Jamaica, immigrated to Toronto, and found, she had a sponsor, but she found a job and became, she was a stenographer, and she found a job as a secretary, and she made a life. And then slowly she was one of 11 kids. She brought 9 of those sisters and brothers to Canada. They all moved to Toronto over time. And she ended up buying a house in Toronto on her own. $10,000 could buy a house back then.
I know.
1955 or something. And
No.
every one of her siblings and cousins came and lived in that house before they found their feet and their jobs and moved on.
Wow.
So that's where I learned support. My mom didn't have support, but she built support for everybody else.
Wonderful.
So she was an amazing woman.
Wow.
So from that, I understand family is everything, and you help your family. So when my parents met through other relatives, my dad was in New York doing a residency. He wanted to live, well, he had to finish in New York. So when they was done, they got married in 56. My brother and I were born in 57 and 59. She said, we're going back to Toronto. So being born in America, first generation, right?
Mm-hmm.
I went to be an immigrant in Toronto.
Yes.
So I've done both.
Yeah.
I've been an immigrant. I grew up there until I was about 19, through the first 2 years of college, and then moved back to the United States, to a country I really hadn't been in before, other than when I was 2. So it's like being a double immigrant.
Correct.
Although Canada and the United States are very similar.
Wow.
And that's when we moved to California in 1978. So from then on, the rest of my life has been in the United States. But during my growing up, my parents would send money back to Jamaica. They would have cousins come up and stay. There would be a cousin from New York who was getting in a little trouble in high school. She came up and lived with us for a year. There was this back and forth of whoever needed help in the family. If someone could help, they did. If they, or the one somebody else would. I've had my grandparents live with us. I've had aunt and uncle come and bought back and forth. So that's what support is. It's, you do it because your family, or you could be cousins, everybody's family. You could be third cousin, you're still family.
Wonderful. And it lightens a lot. It helps to go through those challenges. It helps. Yeah.
So for me, that's the basis of what I learned. And so when probably the most challenging thing for me is medical school. And I was 2,000 miles from home. I couldn't come home. There was the landline. There was no video. There was no cell phones. You couldn't know someone was going to be home. So it would be like at 8 o'clock on Sunday night, that's when you call. And it's long distance, expensive.
Yes.
So support, emotionally support when you're by yourself. My aunt was in New Jersey. And so when I had a full weekend that I could leave town, I had my little car and I would drive to New Jersey and stay for the weekend. And it was just to get away, to be with family. And they're wonderful. They're my second family, and they still are.
Wonderful.
And they happen to be the ones that are still living in Sacramento, so they're close.
Yeah.
They had moved to be closer to family.
Yes.
So since once I got married, my husband is my support system.
Wonderful.
And now I support my family, my parents.
Your parents.
And my father till he passed away, and now I support my mother emotionally and whatever I can do. So it's just something you do. You support family.
It's a blessing.
That's right.
Yeah.
I see you built a lot of resilience, even just from family, from your story with your mother, and just the rest of the family with the support. You've built a lot of resilience. But can you share any other experiences where support or the lack of support has shaped your resilience? I mean, you have been in the medical field for so long. That's a lot of resilience in itself. But how, any other experiences that have built the resilience or maybe the lack of support?
So I don't know that I've had a period where I lacked support. And maybe I'm just blessed that I haven't had to do without it. Because even when I first moved to Stockton on my own, hadn't met my husband yet, I made friends, and the friends became support. And I think sometimes the most important part is to put yourself in a place to be able to find friends. I think one of the bad things about today's world is so many people don't know how to communicate, to ask somebody, hi, you look like you're a nice person. I've seen you a few times. Do you want to go out and have coffee? get to know each other and find out that you have a lot in common, and now you become a friend. Because I know it's difficult during COVID. I know my grown kids would be home and they would play on their computer. That's not friends. That's a computer, so we did not grow that up that way. We're much more used to talking face to face with people, communicating, finding things in common, and moving from that. And I think that may be our resilience. Maybe it's a generational thing that we are more resilient because we always had to talk to people and figure out what we had in common with a lot of different people.
Mm-hmm.
So I really don't have anything other than the challenge of my career, the challenge of being a working mom, the challenge of being a woman in medicine, which is a challenge in itself. But the blessing is pediatrics is 80% women.
Yes.
But often our bosses are men.
Go figure.
Yeah. They're almost all men. So those challenges, I still had support because I had my home support, I had my friends, I had my colleagues. I had a unique environment where women were lifted up even through the ranks. So I feel like I'm blessed.
Right. But I think you have a blessing. I think because your mother, I think, showed you from the time when you're younger what our support system is in terms of friends. So you also learned how to cultivate the sort of relationships. Even when you left home, that has already been instilled in you, that you cannot be an island, right?
Right.
You need support system. No matter how successful you become, you need support, either through, as you say, talking to one another to uplift you. But in today's world, we find that a lot of people struggle to ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think they do find it difficult to do that?
I think that if I think about it in what's going on in our culture these days, so much of our input now is through video, electronics, our phone, our cameras, our videos. I mean, everything's in a screen. The meetings that we do are on screens. And they're flat. They're two-dimensional. They're not three-dimensional. You can't give somebody a hug. I think that's probably why people, my son did an interview for a job. He was wearing his pajama bottoms and a shirt, collared shirt. You couldn't do that when you had to go to an interview. It gives people a whole different way of communicating. They're not comfortable shaking hands. They're not comfortable talking, looking somebody in the eye, or they're comfortable with the video, and they're playing a computer game, shooting things, and they're talking to their friends on the audio, but that's not communicating. So I think it is hard. It's going to be harder. It is harder for the young people, for the 20s or 30s and below, who grew up with this technology. And so I'm a little bit afraid for them. I, as a pediatrician, would see in my last few years where parents brought their little babies in their strollers. And as soon as they fussed at all, they'd hand them their phone with a baby Einstein on it so that they would be focused in on that. And they said, well, it's educational. They're going to learn to talk. No, they're not. Talking is you talking to them, and they babble back to you and making eye contact can't do that with a video. And I think that's probably the scariest part of technology, is that it's ruining the connections, the social connections. Our kids are not growing the brain cells for it.
Correct.
And it's causing all the problems we see, isolation, the anxiety, things like that.
Yeah. Do you see trust being also impacting these struggles that other people are having in today's world, in terms of seeking for help because they don't know who to trust?
Well, this is probably just my opinion. There's so many people who lied to us on media, and we don't know who to trust. I mean, the scams, they send you an email for help, but it's somebody trying to steal your identity and your money. You don't know who to trust in an email. You certainly don't know how to trust if someone knocks on your door. It could be anything that they want. I'm more likely to take them at face value and say, oh, this nice person knocked on the door and they want to sell something, but I said no. You don't know, but they're casing the joint.
Yeah.
It is much harder to know who to trust. I think that at least in a work environment, hopefully you trust your supervisor and the people you work with, because they're doing similar things to you. And as you learn their personalities and get to know them, then you trust. So again, you have to communicate. You have to get a personal relationship with somebody to trust them.
Yeah. Not the phone. The trust won't come.
On a video.
Yeah, you are
Not that
talking.
I don't trust you, but
yes, and see, you don't even know because the thing is, the reason. Okay, you can listen to the voice, and the voice can deceive you, but the body language, they can be telling you yes when they are just saying, "You kidding?"
without the video, you have no idea what's
You
going on.
have no idea.
Sounds like it's the connection piece. We're missing the connection piece.
Yes.
You know, like John Maxwell says, everyone communicates, few connect.
Yes.
So that connection is where the trust is built, so we can communicate and just have this facade, but there's no connection. So that's where we are trading off that connection for convenience.
Convenience,
Yeah. And you did raise an important point that takes me to the next question. We're in this digital world. How would you still instill culture and family expectations and still let that influence the willingness to lean on others? Now, even with the young ones, they can just ask Google. So why should I run to mom? Why should I, if I can just ask Google, and by the time they're coming with their question, if it sounds conflicting, it's like, well, no, this is not what Google told me. So how do we still allow culture and our family expectations to influence in the midst of this digital world that we're in?
I think it's cultivating conversation so that when you're together, you spend time talking. So not just watching a movie or something like that. It's meal times. That was one of the rules that in our house, there was no TV during meal times. It was to talk. And we talked, how was your day? What went on? We would say what went on in our days. My husband's an engineer, so he would have his stories too. And we would talk, and if they had questions, problems, it would come up and we would get to discuss it. And with 3 kids, they each hear the other's problems. You start building communication skills and some history of what to do. It happened to the older brother and you heard that situation, you're going to, the middle brother's going to figure it out too. I think conversation is probably the way to get the trust so that they don't just depend on what they hear outside or on their phones. They have to want to come and tell you what their concerns are. And if you don't communicate that you want to hear whatever they have to say, then they won't come to you. They'll go to Dr. Google.
Yes, you're right. You're right.
So
Yeah,
we have to be intentional, right?
Correct.
yeah.
In being there.
Communicate,
Yeah.
talk, and conversation, and it's two-way conversation. Not you
Not
need
one
to
of.
do what I say, don't do anything else. It's, let's talk about what's going on with you, and I'll tell you what my expectations are and the rules of our house and whatever. But as they're grown up, now we talk, they're adults. We give our ideas back and forth.
And it can go. It can flow both ways now.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk about just listening with intent and talking with the intention of communicating. Yesterday, I was at the speech contest for Toastmasters, and one person gave a speech about how he was so absorbed in this work. So the child would be talking to him, the 6-year-old can come and talk to him. I said, until the 6-year-old figured out, he said, "You're not listening to me, and forget, I'm not going to be talking to you because you're not interested in me."
Mm-hmm.
And I think the moral of the story was, you know what? These gadgets, when you go home, put down the computer, pay attention to your family, pay
Mm-hmm.
attention, listen with the intention of listening.
Yes.
Because if you don't, even the young ones will realize that you don't care and they won't tell you what's important.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Yeah. Nowadays, the other thing that we have are going to the mentors. I think most of the schools, most of the young ones, besides us as parents, besides the families and the other friends, they have the mentors, they have the coaches that play the long-term growth, development, help them in their long-term development as well. So, what do you think? I think, especially nowadays, where we have kids who are glued to their phones, who are using the Zooms as the way of communicating. So, where do you see these mentors? What role can they play in their lives to ensure that there is that communication and they realize the intent or the importance of having this support system where you can learn about a person and not Google a person?
I think that in schools, and we depend on our teachers to be a good role model. And for the most part, I know many of my friends are teachers, and they wholeheartedly are in that role to be good mentors to children. What you mentioned, the sports, the clubs that the school provides them for outside of regular school, the teachers themselves, those are all mentors for children. I think that's a good thing for parents to get their kids into activities, not just school where they go for the 5 or 6 hours and come straight home, but to find something, especially as they get into high school, that they're interested in, whether it's an art club or government or sports or tennis or whatever it is, because as they get into those, they're learning to work with other people, their peers, but they're also have these adults who care about them, who are mentoring them, who are encouraging them. And my 3 kids did swimming and water polo. That was their thing through middle school, high school, and they really got a lot from the kids that they hung out with and the mentors, the swim coaches. They really cared about them. And their examples, they listened to the kids. And then we were active in being there for their activities. It wasn't they just went off and we said, "Hey, we got 3 hours off." No, all those meets we drove for, we went to, we traveled for, and the soccer parent does it, the baseball parent does it, because all of that activity with the parents involved, other siblings, you're showing that you care about your child. And I think that's what you still have to do. That doesn't change. And those things are still in schools nowadays for the younger people who are having their kids. So that's important. The other part that I've noticed, and is now even the Academy of Pediatrics suggested it, is no more cell phones in school. And this last school year, our local schools have taken the cell phones out.
Excellent.
And it's made so much difference.
Excellent.
You can see it as you go by the school. There's a middle school around the corner from us, and we will go walking during the day, and they're out on the playground for their recess or their lunchtime. No cell phones. They're talking to each other. They're playing with the football or the basketball. They're doing activities instead of sitting at, the benches with their phones like this.
Wonderful.
Now, it's not all of them, because I saw this one group of kids running. They were supposed to run. There's the runners, there's the walkers, and there's the ones way back in the end out of a class of 20 or 25. And there's one kid with his cell phone, which wasn't supposed to be out. And the whole time his face was like this, walking. So you can't help all of them.
Yeah. Unless maybe that is he uses it to see where he's going.
It must be, because he wasn't looking and he wasn't running.
He wasn't running. Yeah, it's a big challenge, especially when you talk about the phones. I used to teach faith formation, and all these kids will come with their phones, and then you say phones out, they'll put them in the pocket. These kids can hit a knot, can text without even looking at those phones, right?
Oh my God.
Oh yeah, that's how it was bad. So the only thing I asked is, said, next time when they come, I'll just have a basket. I said, your phone's in here.
Yeah.
Oh no, I said, yep, we're having the phones in here, because I realized they are so hooked to the phone at an early age.
And you can't do two things at one time. The
No.
brain can't do it.
No.
And so you're texting underneath the table. Your mind is not on what your eyes are.
No, you're not listening. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, on that topic of support, the next question, if you would help us with this, and what would be the difference between support and dependency? We want the support, but we also want to create independence. So where do we draw that line between support and dependency?
I think support is helps you make your own decision. So the support is, so if it's a supervisor, the supervisor gives you the skills, and then you use the skills to make a decision for, the skills that you were given or taught to do your work. Also, the supervisor is there not to jump in and take over, but to allow you to do, to lead your group. And then if there's issues, take you in private and say, okay, let's talk about how that went. I saw this went very well. I saw maybe we might need to improve in this area. How do you think about doing this way? So support teaches you, but doesn't take over. The supervisor doesn't come into that meeting and say, he's doing it all wrong. Let me tell you what you're supposed to do. You need to be able to make some of those mistakes, but you need to have education that supports you to grow, to learn more. So whether it's training ahead of time or real-time critique. And that, I think in a lot of businesses, you'll have periodic meetings with your supervisor to give you assessments, right? This is how you're doing in your job. You've been there for 6 months, 6 months review. They give you first the things that you're doing well and things that you need to improve in. I mean, that's support. You're hearing from the supervisor, you're doing a great job. I think you can grow in this area. I'm going to get you some training to do this better. And then we'll see again in another 6 months how you're doing. So I think in business, that's one of the best ways to support employees. At home, your support system can listen, but they can't fix. So it's just a sounding board for ideas. And you might be saying, okay, I have this meeting come up. I'm going to say what I'm going to say in front of you. Tell me if it sounds good. Give me a critique of my little speech that I'm going to do. And then you say, well, they might say, you sounded kind of stuffy. Why don't you put a joke in here? Whatever. But you're asking for help in a different aspect. It's not the technical aspect of your job, but maybe the social aspect. Your family can help with that. But at work, either your other employees that are on the same level as you or your supervisor can help you with the things that you need to do.
Because of the time, I'm going to ask just one question, and I think Pearl may ask the question that I think you leave it, maybe a take home for the for our audience. But one of the questions that I have, because you are living it, you are offering the support system to your mom. How can a person who is giving that support continue to give support without burning out?
It's a very good question, because dementia is a tough thing to be around, because they don't really know you anymore. They don't remember their family history. And so my job is to remind her. I tell her the family history. We go through pictures and I point out the people, and she goes, how do you know all this? Because you told me, Mom, first. And when I get tired or I repeat over and over, my husband comes and he says, I'll take it for a few minutes. And then I get a break. And then I go, I can do it. And you go back. So you just take it with family, you take it one day at a time.
Because you have your own support as well. You support, yes, and you have your own support system as well.
I support because I have support.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you.
I have even had my son do support too. He has this connection with his grandma that used to be, she thought he was, walked on water or something. If I was having an issue, then he was home, he'd get on the phone and say, hi, Grandma. And she'd say, hi, Thomas. And they would get into this conversation and she'd forget all about what she was perseverating on. And then it's like, Grandma's fine now.
Wonderful. That's good. Oh,
so, even my kids have learned support. I'm pointing out to them, if this is a genetic family trait thing, now you know what to do when your mother has this issue.
That's good. Yes. And I think that learning is good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you have to laugh too.
Yes. Yes.
We have to embrace the journey. Now, thank you for sharing your stories. And lastly, I would frame this question as a piece of advice for our audience in terms of boundaries and using those to strengthen healthy support systems. What would be your last words to our audience around that?
Around boundaries.
Around boundaries.
So you do have to have boundaries, like what you allow people, how close you allow people in. That's your boundary. And there you have different boundaries. It's like circles that go out. Your closest boundary, the people you let in that inner circle, will be the people you trust the most. And that would be, for me, my husband, my kids, my family, extended family would be in there. And I could tell them things that are much more personal and deep than I would tell people maybe in my extended family, my friends circle. So the boundaries depend on how well they know you, how well you know them, and the place you're at. In my business, I have boundaries. There are certain things you don't do in a workplace. that, that would be physical boundaries. I don't do a lot of hugging at work, except for kids. But so I think it's very situational. It depends on whether it's a work boundaries, home boundaries, social boundaries. We live in, that's what life is about. You have to know what those boundaries are so that you deal with people appropriately.
I wish we had more time to continue discussing the support system, because we all need it. And we all are going to need it at one point in time. And the support system that we give today will receive from other people. So as we close, let us have a gentle reminder that you are never meant to be alone in life, that support is not a luxury, it is a necessity. Whether you are receiving help or offering it, every act of connection matters. You should reach out as a person. We should all stay present as a people. And we should always remember, even being a listener today is part of building a stronger community, a more compassionate community, and a community that offers support that we all need, because support has an impact and it offers significance. And thank you again for joining us and for enlightening our audience.
Thank you for having me.
We have learned today that support systems don't just help us survive, they help us thrive. They challenge us, they ground us, they remind us of who we are when we forget. We heard of that today. So as you move forward, may you choose connection over isolation and courage over silence. We look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Thank you for joining us on this journey to elevate and inspire. Until next time, lead with purpose and grow.